Good morning. It's Monday morning. I'm had a good night's sleep, ready to face the day. Probably go out to a coffee shop at some time. Can't resist the temptation. But I also want to share with you a learning experience that I had several years ago now. It's always been my ambition to teach at a theological college, and I got the chance to do that at Spurgeon. And it was a bit of a disaster, really. I wasn't very good at the administration or management side of things. And I used to have to chair meetings. And sometimes, if you're chairing a meeting, there's jargon words, and I didn't know what they meant. So I'd say, and now we come to the blah de blah bit of the agenda. And everybody knew that I hadn't have a clue what I was talking about. I was out of my depth academically. I enjoyed the teaching, I enjoyed the interaction with the students. But one of the things that took me by surprise was that I missed the church that I had been the pastor of, Westbourne Park Baptist Church. And actually, at the moment, taking enforced leave for health reasons, I'm missing King's Cross Baptist Church. I'm missing the people. I always had this self-image of myself as a bookish person, and if you know anything about me, you know that's true. I like to read and to think and to study, but I didn't realize that over 40 years of ministry, I had developed a real taste for people, a love and a concern for people. You get involved in people's lives as a pastor, sometimes happy, sometimes sad occasions. And in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul says this: But, brothers and sisters, when we were orphaned by being separated from you for a short time, in person, not in thought, out of our intense longing, we made every effort to see you, for we wanted to come to you. Certainly I, Paul, did again and again, but Satan blocked our way. He wanted to visit his friends in Thessalonica. He'd spent time serving them, sacrificing for them, and he developed a deep personal bond with them. That's chapter 2, verse 17 and 18. And one of the saddest things about leaving Westbourne Park to go and teach at Spurgeon's was leaving the people behind. Some people, let's be honest, as a pastor, you're glad to leave behind, but some you're not. And they were close friends, and we developed really close spiritual bonds. I remember going into a prayer meeting once with some people from Kensington Temple, and I took my intercessors team in with me, and they were just rejoicing that we turned up because we were able to intercede and join them in prayer. And there are individuals who I'm still friends with at that church, and now at King's Cross Baptist Church as well. So that personal connection is so important, and I missed it. And for at least 2 years, I went through a period of grief, having left Westbourne Park, and trying to settle into this academic institution. One of the things about being in inner city ministry is you realize that very soon that things don't always work as planned. People intend to do things, but life gets in the way. And you can't blame them because they're dealing with real problems. But in an academic institution, ambiguity does not work. It has to be precise. There are policies. Anyone who's worked in education knows that there are policies and that there are procedures to go through. And I did not have the ability. I'd spent 40 years learning how to be improvisational, how to be ambiguous, how to roll with the punches, and I couldn't make the transition, even though I enjoyed the teaching itself. But there's also implications, and at the end of chapter 2, in verse 16, it says, "The wrath of God has come upon them at last." And in chapter 4, it spells out a little bit as well. You see, Christianity is not just a set of academic teachings, it's a set of lifestyles. And the teaching and the lifestyle go together. And in chapter 4 of that 1 Thessalonians, Paul says this: It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the pagans who do not know God, and that in this matter no one should wrong or take advantage of a brother or sister. The Lord will punish all those who commit such sins, as we told you and warned you before. For God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life. And therefore, anyone who rejects this instruction does not reject a human being, but God, the very God who gives you his Holy Spirit. So there's a set of teaching. If you read the letters of Paul, they're often divided into what you could say doctrinal and devotional or discipleship issues. He starts off with principles and he applies them. And in this case, he's applying it to sexual morality and immorality. And I think there's no doubt in the church at the moment, in general, that our grasp of sexual morality has become loosened. It's not something I bang on about a lot, but it is important. People are not respecting marriage. They're living together without being married. They're pursuing same-sex relationships. Some of you know that I've been running a support group for people with same-sex attraction as well for several years now, and one of the most inspiring groups that I've been ministering into, and I miss that personal contact with them as well. So there's an implication here for practice, for what we do with our lives, and it's not just young people. I found out a few years ago that sexually transmitted diseases are increasing exponentially among people in their 50s. People in their 50s, their divorces have come through, their marriages maybe haven't worked, and they're thinking, oh, if we were young again, we could experiment sexually like young people. But of course, they didn't get taught about safe sex. So STDs were increasing in that slightly older age group, which was a surprise when I found that out. So it's not just talking about young people. In fact, at the moment, the statistics show that young people are having less sex than older people. Maybe it's the lockdown, maybe it's caution. They're drinking less, they're taking less risky behaviors with drugs, and involved in less overtly risky sexual behavior as well, which is a good thing. So I'm really just aiming these two things. The first is to say, at the moment, through enforced time off, I am missing people. I'm missing you at KCBC and other people. I have to watch myself health-wise. I can't have too many visitors so I don't catch anything, because they are going to go ahead with treatment, but they have to make sure that I'm well enough for the treatment. So I have to protect myself health-wise. But I am missing people. I might not respond to all your messages, but I'll try to if I can. But secondly, as believers, let's avoid sexual sin. Let's keep our moral template pure. We can't do it completely, but we can ask God to help us. So those are my applications for your word today. God is with you, and he will guide you in all the decisions that you make today. And if you find like you're lonely, give someone a call. Send them an email, send them a text. Reach out to someone else. You might be feeling grief, lonely, isolated, but somebody else may be as well. So those are my encouragements for you today. God bless you.